Hey there. In this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what JavaScript is, what it does, how it does it, and I'm going to show you some examples that I think are pretty interesting. So JavaScript is a programming language or a scripting language. We're not going to worry too much about the difference. Remember when we saw this breakdown? Way back at the beginning, we talked about structure, presentation, and behavior. You've got the foundations now of structure, HTML, and presentation, CSS. Now it's time for the third leg of the three-legged stool, and that's behavior. How do we make things move and change on a web page that's already loaded into the user's browser? JavaScript. When you use a site like Amazon or any HTML-based app or page, and things on the page respond to what you do, that's JavaScript doing its thing. So if you want to create apps that run in browsers, you need to know some JavaScript. There are lots of web designers and web developers who have never taken even one computer science class. A lot of them are self-taught. Studying computer science is a whole big ball of engineering and optimization and decision trees and stuff that most front-end web developers never need to know. It might be good for them to know more than they do, but they can get hired and do their jobs well without the whole encyclopedia of computer science knowledge. So don't confuse programming with computer science. That said, you will have to learn some fundamentals of programming if you want to have flexibility with JavaScript. Flexibility will let you be creative. Flexibility and a little solid knowledge will enable you to look stuff up with our friend Google and find out how to do just about anything you can imagine. That is really, really powerful. You have a lot of choices in how to make JavaScript interact with the HTML or CSS or both. It all depends on what you want to do. For example, here's a simple version of a quiz page. It doesn't even show you which answers you got wrong. It's a very simple quiz. Here's the JavaScript that makes it work. You can see variables, if statements, and for loops here. These are fundamental not only to JavaScript, but to all programming languages. One great thing about getting started in coding is that all the programming languages have a lot of similarities, even more so than human languages like Italian and Spanish. Once you get the hang of how to use these building blocks, you can apply that understanding to any other programming languages you decide to learn in the future. You might have noticed that we're looking at a separate JavaScript file here. The JS file, like a CSS file, must be attached to the HTML file that's using it. But if you look at the head, you can't see any JavaScript file there. That's because we often insert the JavaScript at the bottom of the HTML file, just before the closing body tag. You'll notice too that this is completely different from the link tag that we use to attach a CSS file. We'll talk more about this in a later video. JavaScript can be used to add many different kinds of interactivity to web pages and apps. There are even games coded entirely in JavaScript. Here are a few examples, and I put the URL at the bottom of the page, so if you want to check them out, you can pause the video and get the URL and go have a look. One important fact is that client-side JavaScript is executed on the user's own computer, meaning there is no request sent to the server. And there's no waiting for the server to respond. Once the attached JavaScript file or files have been downloaded to the user's computer or phone, all the processing actions are handled right there, locally. This makes JavaScript pretty fast. Here are some of the things JavaScript is used for. JavaScript processes your selection from a menu. fills in search options while you type, rewrites page content dynamically when you roll over something, pops up pictures as an overlay that can then be closed, scrolls from one part of a page to another, and lets you build original interactives like this, and this. So I hope you can see that JavaScript is really worth the effort. If it's your first programming language ever, it's going to take a real commitment for you to learn it. Don't defeat yourself by thinking that it's harder for you than it is for other people. The first programming language is the hardest, no matter which one you learn first. Remember the great words of Yoda: do or do not. There is no try.